Just whoever. Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah, I suppose the question that I have is, I mean, you do a really good job at sort of justifying the compassion side of things with animals, but as a philosophy society, I think we want to know a bit more about why you attach equal value to human beings and animals. Because I think a lot of people would argue that animals are less valuable than human beings because they lack rational capabilities, and that's what sets us apart from us.
Okay.
We sort of avoid the religion argument, which is the whole dominion over animals thing, and just look at this from a purely philosophical, secular perspective. Then what justification can you offer?
So the first 2 points to that really would be, number one, like I said right at the end there, we look at it from our biased perspective. We need to look at it from, when you look at an injustice in life, you don't look at it from your perspective, you look at it from the victim's perspective. And they value their life in the same way that you value your life, believe it or not. Otherwise they would be committing suicide. Animals want to live in peace and be free in exactly the same way that human beings do. And I don't think the question is, the question should not be, what do you value more, human beings or animals? Which is the question you're really asking. I mean, I tend to see, I look at it from the individual's perspective, and I do see an animal's life as valid as any human beings. Human beings are animals at the end of the day, and I don't think intelligence is a biased position. But the question is not, what do you value more, human beings or animals? The question is, what do you value more? An animal's life or an animal suffering and a 5-minute tasting session, or an animal being turned into a leather jacket, when you can just wear or eat something else instead. That's how I look at it for the most part. That's the correct question. What's more valuable to you, an animal's life or a commodity when you can just eat and wear something else?
I think that meat products or animal derivatives are still cheaper on the whole than...
It's actually not true.
Because, I mean, I'm just thinking of 2 litres of dairy milk would cost maybe what, I don't know what it is, the cost of living crisis at the minute, it's like 140 or 150, something like that. But a litre of oat milk is about 150.
Yeah, so that's one product, but there's 2 ways to look at it. Number one, the oat milk will keep a lot longer. Like, you can keep a litre of oat milk in your fridge and it'll last for maybe a week and a half or maybe slightly longer, so it'll last longer. That's a common misconception. I don't have a lot of money. I genuinely don't have a lot of money, and I live I live to my means. I don't spend a lot of money. There are expensive vegan products. Vegan cheeses can be expensive. There's cheap ones too. But if you eat a healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, I mean, the cheapest foods in the supermarket are vegan, right, already, without the alternatives. We're talking rice, pulses, pasta, legumes, nuts. All those things are really, potatoes, really, really cheap. But even at that, there was a study done this year which was really helpful to my argument, or an animal rights or a vegan argument. Oxford University study, they studied all types of diet, and they came to the conclusion that a vegan diet is 30% cheaper than a normal in inverted commas diet. So that's a scientific study. I mean, you can seek out really expensive vegan products, but you can also seek out really expensive meat products. The dearest, you go to any restaurant around here, the dearest item that's going to be available to you is probably a steak. You know, so you can live very cheaply as a vegan, or you can live really expensively as a vegan. So it's a misconception, and anybody who is vegan will tell you that it's no more expensive than before they were vegan.
What about professional bodybuilders? So like, if their dream is to win Mr. Olympia or something like that, and they're told to switch to like a vegan alternative, but whereas like the evolutionary aspect to muscle growth is more suited to meat, as it has been for thousands of years, what would you say to those people trying to achieve that goal and get that advantage over their competition?
Well, I told you that Mr. Universe in 2014 was a guy called, I think it's Barney Duplessis, you pronounce it, was vegan. One of the strongest men in the world now currently is a German guy. He's a strongman called Patrick Bavimian. He has 2 or 3 world records in like strength events. Not just those guys, but there's like cage fighters, boxers. David Hayes vegan. Well, these people are maybe not vegan from an ethical point of view, but they're plant-based. Novak Djokovic, Lewis Hamilton, Venus and Serena Williams. Many NFL players. Tom Brady eats plant-based. I don't know if you follow the NFL. Tom Brady is considered the GOAT, or the greatest of all time player in the NFL. He played until he was like 45 years old. He was eating plant-based for longevity. Eating animal products is actually bad for you. Number one, they're a package deal. Yes, you get protein from them for sure, but you're also going to get saturated fat, you're getting cholesterol, you're getting antibiotics. You're ingesting all those things as well. So many athletes now are going plant-based. And like I say, Mr. Universe has been vegan. You can look it up if you don't believe me. His name is, I think he might be Belgium or Dutch or something. It's Placis, P-L-E-Y-S-I-S. I think that's how you pronounce it. You can easily get enough protein. That is an industry myth, that you can't get enough protein on a vegan diet. If you eat enough food, you can easily get enough protein. And people say to me all the time, what about my protein? And I'll say to them, well, how much protein do you get in a day? Most people don't have a clue. You go to the hospitals, they are full of people with diseases of excess, heart disease and diabetes and all these things. There's no wards in the hospital for vegans with protein deficiency. And another one I always use is greyback gorillas, who are plant-based. They're 230, 240 kilograms. They're hugely muscular animals, and they eat leaves. So you can believe me if you look into it. I recommend you read a book called The China Study. It's one of the biggest epidemiological studies ever done, and it explains how healthy plant-based diet is for human beings. So yeah, if Mr. Universe can be vegan, Lewis Hamilton can be vegan, and all these top athletes, then any of us can be vegan too.
What moral value does giving animals rights give to humans? Like, how's it going to benefit them? Or,
well, first of all, we shouldn't see. I don't think we should look at animals and see how can we benefit from animals. That's a wrong way to. That's like, how can we benefit from another human being? How can I benefit from you? Well, can I take you home with me tonight and you work in my house for free, and I'll keep you out in a shed out the back? You know, that's wrong. You know that's wrong. Yeah, owning somebody else's property is absolutely wrong. It doesn't. So you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. It doesn't matter if I benefit from exploiting an animal. Again, you need to look at it from their perspective. They don't want to be used and abused and killed. They just want to live their life in peace. So I think your question is, you're looking at it from entirely the wrong perspective. You're looking at it like, I don't look at things like how can I benefit from this for me. I'm going to be honest with you. I see that as a very selfish way to look at things. And I'm not calling you out or anything like that, but I see it as a very selfish way to think about what can I get from this person, or what can I get from this animal that will benefit me. I don't look at things. I find that very hard to understand that way of thinking, to be honest. So.
What about African culture, spirituality? Certain activities can be done without slaughtering animals, and to tell them not to do that, isn't that in itself moral? Because you're stripping away from the culture, and isn't that promoting new imperialism?
No, I don't think so, because number one, I'm not telling anybody what to do at all. I'm asking people to be kinder, more compassionate to animals. I can't tell anybody what to do. What anybody does when I give you information is completely up to yourself. So I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm simply giving information. It's that person's personal choice to do. I don't think culture, tradition, I don't think those things are justification for taking somebody's life away from them when you don't need to. If something is morally wrong, if it's wrong to make somebody suffer, and it's wrong to take somebody's life away from them, for somebody to claim tradition just so I can cut somebody's throat or cut their head off or whatever you want to do, I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong to use religion and any of these things to kill animals. Should it be sacrificed to whatever God you might be sacrificing to, or whatever you're doing. Genuinely, if you want an honest answer, I think it is terrible to hide behind those things, to harm animals, to cause harm to somebody else when you don't need to, is not a justification in my eyes. We can disagree on that, but I don't see that it's justified in any way whatsoever. I don't see culture as any excuse to harm somebody else.
I'm not a vegan. I'm more sort of an omnivore, but I'm trying a little bit because I feel guilty when I eat meat. But I would be guilty of, listening to such an emotional talk like yours and agreeing with most of what you say, but I'm still going to go out there and eat meat out of force of habit. Yes, I can challenge those habits.
Yeah.
And I'm aware that I've been socialised into believing that all of this is okay. But there are still detractors out there that think that we just have, some sort of advantage, or that we're better than animals in some way, or they're just blind to their own behaviour.
Yeah.
I would just automatically lift things off a shelf in a supermarket without even thinking about it. Now I do think about it a little bit more. But I just wondered what you could say.
Well, it's force of habit for sure. It's easier to do what you've always done, and people do not like change, especially when it comes to diet. So a couple of ways I would say it to you. I think the conception is that you're going to change everything in your diet. Everything has to change. Well, if you look at a Sunday roast dinner, you have potatoes, peas, maybe leeks, parsnips. All those things are already vegan. The only thing you're changing on that plate is the meat product, and you're flipping it out, and you're maybe going to have nut roast, or you'll have a chicken alternative or a meat alternative, or maybe you want all to just eat more of the other stuff. And also, so there's 2 or 3 sites available for people to help people make the change. It's quite easy for me to go vegan, to be honest, because I was strict vegetarian since I was 19. I mean, I did it way back in the day when there were the only alternative product I could get my hands on was like dry soy mince in a health food store. There were no alternative sausages or burgers or anything like that. So I could do it then with very little information. Like, there's so much information. All you have to do is go online and Google how to make vegan lasagna, or how to make vegan bechamel sauce, or how to make vegan trifle, and there'll be like hundreds of recipes come up. Like, it's easy to be vegan now, and I can tell you honestly, if you speak to people who are vegan, and if you would speak to them 2 weeks before they went vegan, they would all say the same thing. Oh, it's too hard, and I don't know what to eat, and I don't really want to change, and when I'm going to the supermarket, I don't know what to buy. Those same people, if you speak to them after they go vegan, 2 weeks after they go vegan, or 3 weeks, I think it takes 21 days to form a new habit. So there's like Challenge 22 is one of the sites you can go on, and they'll give you information. It's 22 days because it's 21 days to form a new habit, and then after that you're on your own. Those people will all tell you the same thing. They will tell you 2 things actually. Number 1, it's the best thing they've ever done, and number 2, it's the easiest thing they've ever done. It's so easy, and I think sometimes we as human beings look at it from our perspective, and we're worried about what we're going to eat and what we're going to buy in the supermarket. If you keep the victims in mind, if you walk into a supermarket and you keep in your head, well, if I buy this product that's presented to me in a nice little pack, it just looks like a burger or whatever, it's a shape. But if you think in your head that somebody really had to suffer to make that product, that makes it easier when you think of the victims. And genuinely, give it a go, and after 2 or 3 weeks, you will never look back. Some people do, but there are loads of people who are not. You see loads of influencers online, I just want to say this, who are plant-based influencers, and they're vegan for health, or they're vegan for the environment, or they're vegan for themselves. The people who go vegan and stay vegan are people who do it because they don't want to be part of the stuff that I showed you earlier. Yeah,
So given like the relatively new wide availability of substitutes for animal products, and especially looking back on like human life like a few hundred years ago, do you think this sort of moral imperative for veganism is a relatively new phenomenon?
Well, there were certainly people who were living plant-based a long, long time ago. I think there was a poem written by an Iranian poet like over 1,000 years ago. I can't remember the name of the poem, but it was all about being vegan and not harming animals and stuff. Is it a new phenomenon? Probably, yes. I think loads of people have been vegetarian in the past, like myself. I was vegetarian for the animals, not for health. But as more information becomes available to people, when we realise now that we don't have to eat animals to survive and be healthy, we're into a realm now where all the old myths about having to eat animal products to survive and be healthy are being blown apart. Well then, yes, it is probably a new phenomenon as the answer to the question, but it's like, you know, when slavery ended, there was loads of people arguing for slavery, and let's do it the way we've always done it before. But when new information becomes available to you, and when if somebody speaks to you and said, look, I think this is wrong. By the way, have you ever thought about enslaving somebody and having them as property is wrong? And you think to yourself, well, you can either do two things. You can say, I don't really care, I'm just going to continue to do it. Or you can say, do you know what, you're actually right. You know, society evolves and we move forward, and there's always a better way to do things, right? So yeah, it's for sure, it's not new, but it's a new phenomenon, and there are absolutely more vegans around now than there's ever been before. But I think it's been driven by the internet more than anything, because people are, I mean, I hadn't a clue about the dairy industry when I was young. I just thought cows produced milk, for example. Then I found out, hold on a wee minute, we're exploiting females, then we're abducting their children away from them, then we're killing the children, and then we're killing them as well. I knew none of that. I just thought cows produced milk for human beings, never questioned it. So as new information becomes available to society and we can make better choices, then I think we should probably make the better choices, the more compassionate choice anymore.
Do you think like an insect has the same like right to life as a human?
That's a good question. See, veganism is not about right to life, it is about exploitation. So I understand, yes, being 100% completely honest with you, if I was driving to work in my car and I was driving through dogs and killing dogs and animals, I would stop my car and get out. Insects, yes, I would never on purpose harm an insect, ever. If there's a fly in my bedroom at home, I'll put a glass over the top and a little piece of paper in behind and I'll take them outside. But I understand that by simply existing on this planet, I can't avoid doing harm to insects. Like I probably stood on a couple walking across here tonight. I can't avoid that. When I drive my car, I can't avoid harming insects. Would I ever harm one on purpose? No. Do I see them as having the same right to life as human beings? It's a very tricky question, because there are billions of insects in this world, and if I answered yes to that question, then you'd call me a hypocrite, right? Because I am killing insects by default. But my position is always, if I don't have to do any harm and I don't have to exploit an animal, then I'm not going to do it. But unless I taught myself, sometimes I can't avoid it. It's unavoidable to do no harm on this world. So sometimes you have to do, it's not that you have to do harm, it's sometimes you just can't avoid it by existing. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my first question is, you stated that what's more valuable to you, an animal's life or a commodity? But then, isn't that statement, isn't somebody, an individual or let's say society that would make that type of statement? Because not all, looking at it in like a world viewpoint, because you gave a lot of examples of like Western, and I'm not from here, I'm from a third world country.
Okay, yeah.
And killing animals sometimes is for, let's say, when you're entering the season where certain types of diseases are going to be prevalent.
Yeah.
You kill animals that, because the government doesn't have funds. So isn't that to say that what's more valuable to you, an animal's life or a community, what's somebody who's privileged?
So, there are political issues for sure. It's a very common thing in African countries for them to grow crops which they then sell to Western countries. The Western countries will feed those crops to farmed animals, And oftentimes people in those countries will starve because they haven't got enough food. So that's a political system, and I agree with you, that is absolutely wrong. Nobody should be starving. The science says if everybody was plant-based, because there are 8 billion people on this planet, right? We kill somewhere in the region of 84 billion land animals every single year for food. 16 kilograms of grain produce 1 kilogram of beef, so it's really, really inefficient. If you're in a survival situation, that is completely and utterly different. If you're in a survival situation and you have to eat an animal to survive, well, who the hell would I be to tell you not to? Human beings, every being does what they have to do to survive. But if we go into this city here now, nobody's in that situation. Nobody here has to kill animals to survive or pay people to kill animals to survive. So we as Westerners, I don't think Westerners should hide behind the excuse of, well, somebody somewhere else has to kill animals to survive, well, therefore I'm going to do that as well. We're not in that situation. And also, when you say privilege, I see taking somebody's life for a food product as the ultimate privilege, to think that I am so special that when I'm not in a survival situation, that I'm going to take somebody's life away from them just because I enjoy the taste of chicken, or I enjoy the taste of pork, or I enjoy the taste of beef. If you're not in a survival situation, then you don't have that excuse. If you are in a survival situation, then that's completely and utterly different.
So what I'm getting is veganism isn't objectively true, it's only, or objectively right, it's only right in certain societies that have the privilege of not, that they don't have to kill that animal. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, but like I say, so number one, there are political problems and issues about food distribution in the world. Like I say, there are people in countries who are growing grain and selling them to Western countries. It's a very common thing. You can actually Google and look it up yourself. I don't know the full details of it, but there is enough food on this planet to feed everybody easily. The problem is there are a lot of greedy people in this world who, so I can't control that. I can only control what I do. If somebody's in a survival situation and they need to kill an animal to survive, if they absolutely have to, well then that's not an argument. Who am I to tell somebody in a survival situation? Yeah, it's not the same. It's a privilege to take somebody's life away from them if you don't have to. In a survival situation, you do what you need to survive. So the two things are not equatable, and everybody in this city in Northern Ireland doesn't have to eat animal products to survive. Some people in the world do, unfortunately. Vegans are not in charge of the world. If I was in charge of the world, things would be a lot more even and everybody would have enough food to survive. There's some things I cannot control, but I can control the choices that I make for myself in the situation that I'm in.